Dun, dun,
Welcome
dun,
back
dun.
to The Change Physician. I am Melissa Katie, the Challenge Doctor, with my co-host with the googly eyes over there, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, coming to you with some Saturday salutations we missed last Saturday, but we're coming back to you this weekend to just say hi and to share what's been going on in the podcast and the past and what's coming up in the future, or any random conversations that Kevin and I decide to have. So how are you doing there, Kevin?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of interesting because we have took a little break. I think the last time we actually spoke was in last year.
It was technically 2022.
Technically 2022.
Yeah.
Which is bizarro.
I know. And we had recently, let's see here. Let me just pull up our recent events in the podcast. I need to scroll back here to the other year. Let's see here. Of course, we always do our Thursday throwbacks because we like to bring back some great guests or conversations that we've had. And the last week of the year, if you didn't catch it, we have the 2022 year in review with trailers that we had actually shared, but there are some trailers that were never shared from the actual episodes or after the episode. And so you can take a peek there and see some of the nuggets of wisdom from all of our guests. And we brought back Dr. Bradley Block for the end of the year on how he improved his own physician soft skills through his own podcast. And the following, to start off the year, of course, Kevin and I talked about our goals. I think I said her goals, his goals, and our goals. So we talked about our individual group and, the community goals, of which was to start sending an email newsletter at least once a month as just a catch up for people that haven't maybe listened to the podcast, know what's going on with us. And we brought back Dr. Mike Wu Ming with his direct sales marketing knowledge, and make sure to check out, that was back from episode 47, so back in the double digits. Yeah.
And Mike had recently hit the 200th episode with his podcast, I think last month. So
yeah, good job.
Yeah, nice job.
Not always easy on your own too. That's
it's so much harder when you're alone.
Yes.
And particularly if you're not interviewing somebody every time, or even with the interviewing, it's a pain. But when you're trying to do a solo podcast, oh God, that's the reason I don't do that anymore.
It's definitely, I mean, it's one thing to do a solo podcast and just special events, you just throw one together, but to consistently with frequency, high frequency, throwing out content to give to your community, that takes a lot more than people realize. So just if you've never done a podcast, understand there's a little bit more behind the scenes. You don't need much money to start one, but it's a lot of your time, blood, sweat, and tears, as I say.
I do think, though, for every physician to have some sort of podcast or blog is outlet would be a good thing. And I think the reason why you choose your media. So if you're audio, you can do podcasts. If you're video, probably the easiest one is just do YouTube. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to do any of that, you can, and if you like to write, you write, right? You have your blog, and then you can write on the day-to-day topics that you have in your practice that are important, like the conversations that you're having all the time with your patients, the key things that you think people need to know about whatever it is, your specialty thing. And you're doing it as an outlet. And the other part allows you to do, and I think we've talked about this in other episodes, is then when you're seeing your patients, say, hey, you know what? I have a blog post, or I have a podcast episode. I do a health podcast related to endocrinology, and check it out. Right. And so you're not doing it in such a way that you think you're going to get massive reach per se, but it's a useful resource. And if you structure it in the right way, it actually may help your clinical time. Gives people kind of check you out, and it becomes a marketing tool on the side as well. So, anyway, that's just a long way to say, I think it's having some sort of outlet is a good thing. It is kind of a grind, though, when you're trying to just do it on your own forever.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You made me think of, actually, I'll share it on air with you, is that I with these virtual consults I do for patients before surgery, occasionally I'll have someone that has pain issues or whatnot. And so I had sent them to your Why Do I Hurt? Is that the I always
whywehurt.com. That's sort of the lay one, and then the
yeah,
paying class for the
right.
clinical,
The
or they're
free
both
1
free.
hour seems digestible to these people. So I sent
Should
her
be shorter.
or him to whywehurt.com. And then I also put a link to Pain Health in Australia, where they talk a little bit about modern pain science and whatnot. So I gave kind of like a little online searchable kind of website, and then some training. That's it. So I gave like a 1-minute spiel, and then why I, think it's beneficial to look at those things. And what do you know? I totally forgot the day of that person I had sent that information. Well, they took it to heart, and they actually did the training, and they went through and looked at some things. And before I was going to give her some medication, or him some medication, I mean, it doesn't, it's female, but I got privacy reasons, I can't say anything else. But this person said, I just want you to know that that information really, really helped me. Like, I don't have any problems anymore. And I'm like, and of course that wasn't enough for me. So it's like, can you tell me what helped you with this? Basically, the pain wasn't bothering her anymore. And she said, funny thing is, I've had all these things done, and these people that are surrounding me are encouraging me to get all these other things done, like more invasive things and surgery, and making all these suggestions. But deep down, I didn't feel like I needed that. And just hearing the things that you shared with me, it basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Not edification. It just reinforced that. It made me feel like I wasn't crazy, and that
provided a sense of certainty and safety in what their course of action was.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was so awesome. I just have to say, it was so awesome to be able to just have. That's why when physicians put little pieces of information that are not just like, what every mainstream thing is sending, but some good advice or good science, something that gives them a sense of credibility is the way I was looking at it. I gave her some credibility in her belief that maybe this wasn't necessary, and that I could go on with my life and not need that. Like, you never know when your reliable or important source of information is available to people. Like, people in Australia didn't necessarily know that I personally sent my patient to their website to figure out, oh, you mean this isn't like gonna be a problem if I don't pursue these things? That kind of thing was just, it's like the light bulb moment. And then all of a sudden, all the sense of threat was gone. It was, I mean, that's my perception. But I thought you would love that story, and for the listeners.
I appreciate that. And it's always, that's what I think most of us went into medicine, I think. Is you want people to get better. And so much of medicine is not geared around helping people to get better. And we forget about the idea of really kind of that therapeutic non-action and basically reassurance in the body's capability to heal. Like, how people change. Like, I'll never forget a guy who came in back pain, and this was toward the tail end of my clinical experiences there. So I wasn't doing any of the voodoo stuff. And, I don't remember exactly what he said, but all I basically said is, hey, really, this should get better with time. You just got to keep moving. And he goes, so I'm not going to hurt myself doing anything? I'm like, no, you're fine. And he goes, that's all I needed to know. I don't need anything else. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And you forget about that, is because people don't, the stuff that we assume everyone knows, they don't know. That's called the curse of knowledge. And for medicine in particularly, is just reminding people. I mean, they're coming in scared. So anything that you can do to just give a sense of certainty in that things that are scary right now are going to be okay. Yeah, you hurt. You're going to get better with time. You just got to keep moving, and things should improve. But if something else happens, come back and see me again. Those little interactions like that are so powerful, and we forget those, because I think we all get fixated on whatever. And then I was just thinking about this for the publishing thing, is we think as soon as we publish something, some lawyer is going to come after you. If you are publishing things that are based on fact and evidence in clinical judgment, and you do it in a professional manner, the risk associated with that, again, I'm not a lawyer, is that it's extraordinarily low. Like, when I was in in residency, our ground rounds were like awesome, like were amazing. And then we also, as CA2s, we had to do a ground rounds presentation. Mine was horrible. It was horrible. It was one of those experiences that you recover from, is like, if this doesn't destroy you, this definitely made me stronger, because it can't get any worse than mine.
Yeah.
When you look out, you're trying to give your presentation and your program director's like, and then you realize that your slides are like flipping and flipping and flipping behind you, because I had put them on a timer to practice it, and I forgot to take it off. Anyway, mine was horrible. But Dr. Chadia, who probably will never see this, she was one of my junior residents, and she did this fantastic presentation on medical legal considerations when it comes to anesthesia. And I'll never forget that, because we were so scared. And the number one reason that people sued was because they weren't connected with their physician, meaning you discounted them, or you were standoffish. And so they didn't feel heard. Like, all they really wanted was to be heard. And that's not everybody. And that kind of counters some of the some of the risk management people will say, who are basically like walled off and say, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. But seriously, being kind and being connected and providing good information, and, really being focused on providing good clinical care, the kind that you would do for your family. I mean, that was the biggest thing for me, is treat other people like you would treat your friends and family, not do to them what you wouldn't do to yourself, which some specialties do, by the way. And then in the back doors, they talk and say, well, I would never have that. I'm like, well, why are you doing it for every patient that comes through your door? Anyway, that's like my long little kind of diatribe on medicine gets dehumanized over the course of all the stuff that we have to deal with. But if you kind of return that sense of humanity, just little teeny pieces of it, try to retain a little bit of sense, your patients are going to appreciate it a lot. And you can do the publishing stuff. And then the last thing I want to say about publishing is, I also think in the internet world, the more space that you have, the advantage is it becomes almost a calling card, and is probably certainly better than a CV in a lot of ways. So in my other stuff, I'm kind of dipping my tail back into doing some training around pain. And that was one of the things when I wrote out an email to my list and said, hey, I'm going to start this thing. We're going to be doing this if you're interested. And I literally put in there, I go, if you don't know me, because I have a lot of people who don't know me, you can Google my name, and the entire page, except for approximately six is me. So I'm not some Nigerian prince. I mean, that's all I said. I'm like, I'm not. And so this is kind of a sense of thing. And then for my kids, I bought their domain names. And I was talking to my son about this, because he's a computer science major, and a lot of computer science is what you've done, not necessarily anything else. And so I'm like, I know, I go, I have your name. So what you need, now you can build a website using your knowledge. You can start putting all your projects under your name. And then literally when it comes to your CV, you can still have your typical CV, but you can say, go to hisname.com, and they're going to see everything that you've done. So anyway, online is good. We typically say it's bad, but actually there's a lot of good things that you can do if you leverage it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right.
I think I heard Corey too. Is that Corey in the background?
Yes. Somebody is talking loud in the background during a recording. That's okay.
I don't think anybody else would have noticed it, because it was like a burl,
Oh, you recognized. Yeah.
And I knew who it was.
Well, the problem with wood floors is everything just rebounds off of everything. So, no, I think those are all very important things to remind us. And I was going to talk about another topic that goes off on a tangent, but it was all pain stuff, so that's not the focus of our conversation. But anything you want to talk about regarding any of those episodes? Or are you good with what I said?
I'm trying to remember what the episodes were, because I was off blah blah talking too much as normal.
Dr. Wu Ming goals. You sent out an email.
I did send out an email.
Well, it was a collaborative effort. Dr. Cuccaro is a really great copy.
So out of practice. I get embarrassed when you say it, because like I know a lot, but I don't do a lot.
Well, it's okay. We are working as a team where you help create the copy and I help deliver it on the website end to send it out to send it out to everybody. So feel free to respond to those emails. We'd love to start some dialogue with those in the community. Any favorite things from the past week or two?
Well, I enjoy this time of year. We did a whole episode on kind of the goal setting and talked about our own goals, and I enjoy that now, like the kind of thing. And one of the presents that my son gave me for Christmas was this little organizer. Is that what those are called? I mean, I should have brought it up here, but I absolutely love this thing. It is like the coolest. It has their month, it has your weeks, it has extra pages you can write in. So I've kind of aggregated all my things, and I've started on the process of what I'm doing this year. And it's funny because you can, one thing I don't remember we talked about in that goal setting, but it's like when you set something, I almost know like, okay, I think this is going to work really well. And other ones I'm like, I'm not sure about this one. And it's just so funny because if it kind of energizes you and it kind of fits in, I don't know. You do it long enough, you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure this one's going to turn out pretty good. And this other one, I'm going to have to watch it and then maybe potentially reevaluate it because it may not actually align with, maybe that's something I think is important and it's not actually is important. So it's fun. I love this time of year. And the other part about it is the traveling for this time of year. And we haven't done much. We are going to do a little teeny trip in February, and we had to cancel one that would have been today, which is why we're talking today. But February and January, oh my God, is my favorite time because everybody else is busy. Few, if you can do it like the weekend after. So what's Monday? Is that Martin Luther King Day? The week after Martin Luther King Day is the best time to go literally anywhere in the United States because there's nobody. It is like, we went skiing at Tahoe last year. There's nobody on the slopes. We did that 2 years before that. And again, nobody on the slopes after that week. So if you guys are doing it, this is like the primo travel time is right after those 3-day weekends. And I light up because this is literally my favorite time to travel. Like January and February, I love
with fewer people around is the key point.
Everyone
knows they're going to come interrupt your.
I know. It is. But yeah, man, I love doing traveling on the off season. Like everybody else is plotting things in the summer, and we'll do stuff in the summer. But man, I just I don't enjoy it nearly as much as right now.
Yeah, the crowds have gotten pretty insane sometimes with airports and other things during big holidays. I prefer not those times too. Much better to have a little bit of peace and quiet. When you get away, many times, at least for me, it's nice to have some quiet and serenity. But well, cool. Yeah, was there anything else on that?
That's just you. How have you been?
I'm good. I finished I'm not going to put it out there quite yet, but I've been working on a little simple coffee table style kind of book that could be ebook, paperback, or hardback. And trying to learn how to do on-demand selling my own book because the book I did before was a hybrid publisher and I handled all the back end. So I want to be able to like put it out on Amazon and actually sell it. So
Kindle's pretty easy, but they do Amazon fulfillment. I'll be kind of curious. We should do an episode on this because I'm kind of curious of that process as well.
Yeah.
Because that would be, again, I think there's a lot of physicians that have a lot of knowledge and they want to like put something out, and self-publishing and gives you an outlet to do that. Yep. And I have to have a traditional publisher. Well, first of all, traditional publisher is not going to touch you unless you don't have a social media presence, period. They just don't do it. And if you have a social media presence, weirdly enough, you could probably publish without them and save more money. But yeah.
Because even though I've sold several thousand books from my previous book, it's negligible on how much money I got from that, and their publisher's going to take their cut. So I think it's worthwhile now in the Amazon, at least ride the wave now. I'm sure there's always going to be some form of an Amazon or Amazon for a long time or something. It's converted.
I don't think they're going anywhere.
I don't either. They are distributorship of all sorts. And in fact, I think you're going to try to create Amazon clinics. I mean, that's just crazy.
There's kind of jumping on the Amazon thing.
Yeah.
Is it's an interesting company. There's a lot. I mean, there's the negative things that can be said about it, and there's a lot of people will talk about the anti-competition. But the one thing that I appreciate about Amazon is they never forget their customer.
Yeah.
And that's the part I struggle with, is because they, like, everything from the clicking to the return to the customer is designed about make it, cheaper, faster, better for you, and more convenient.
Oh yeah.
And that becomes really, really hard to argue against. Because just my one little story on this is because, like, everybody's, buy local and their Amazon's taken over and blah, blah, blah. Well, one of our local stores, and quite a few of them, are just a nightmare to deal with. If you have a problem, they don't want to hear it. And it's like, why would I give you money if you're going to be nasty?
Yeah.
When I can go here and it takes a day, and if there's any sort of problems, they deal with it. Like, so anyway, it'll be interesting to see. But I do appreciate that focus, because that certainly gets lost on who do you serve? Like, who are you serving? And Amazon, I don't think Amazon's forgotten it, at least yet.
Yeah. Well, very customer centric for sure. And I would say the other thing is that, people don't realize is that it's a massive search engine, and it markets your own book, even if you don't pay for it sometimes. I mean, you can augment it and all the stuff, but if it's like, oh, someone bought this book and also like this book, and then it puts it in front of somebody else that you don't even know from another part of the country, that's where a huge value is there's a lot of marketing, and there's a lot of opportunity to kind of just, I could even update it, do a new edition, insert it in its place, or however I want to do it. But KDP is, I think, the Kindle Direct Publishing.
Okay, yeah.
And I also recognize, because I had bought one of these apps through AppSumo, which is headquartered in Austin, I think. They had a Publish Drive, which is only ebook, which I've come to learn. And it's really important to me that I want to have a hardback. Even though it's not easy to do a 5x5 book, like I wanted a square book, but that's not possible. Anyway, there's all these things you probably could cover in an episode, but I realized, even though I have a lifetime planned Publish Drive, which goes through Ingram Publishing throughout the world, and Amazon and one other thing, it doesn't give me the options I want. So I'll do that for some other time, but for now it'll be Amazon, and we'll talk again about, how that is. So I'm really grateful that I did the first edition, thinking that I need to get to my attorney proof of use because I have a trademark for the title of the book. Turns out I didn't have two versions, because you need to have a series for, anyway, long story short, I'm glad I put that date in front of me. Otherwise, like you said, I probably would not have held myself accountable, since this has been a 3 to 4 year process of me finally actually just throwing one together, because I did use an Adobe product in order to create a visual effect. And that's something else we can talk about later too. So anyway, I think that's about it for me. I don't want to go on and on, because I could probably bring up random tangents of things. And
well, come on, I do it all the time.
Well, I don't
want to be like you, Kevin. You're annoying.
Well, I keep
too much.
I keep seeing a little fox every night, through my sunroom, and get to see them every night coming to eat some food. Of course, they like dog food. So,
you have a dog?
No.
Oh, but you're just feeding the foxes.
We put a few pieces, kind of like we put bird food out, but we just put a few little
fox food,
pieces of dog food. Yeah. So sunflower seeds for the birds, and a little bit of dog food for the foxes. Oh, and the raccoons are hilarious to watch too, because they're quite dexterous and pretty funny when they start fighting each other for the food.
Those little buggers. One of the things that we did this year is we rented a cabin up at probably the most beautiful, or one of the most beautiful national parks. It's not a national park, state parks, and I would say one of the most beautiful parks in the United States. Which is Silver Falls in Oregon. Oh my God, it's just absolutely gorgeous. Silver Falls State Park. It's just amazing. They have the Trail of 10 Falls, where you do this hike. It's about 7+ miles, I think, somewhere around there, and you hit 10 different waterfalls. I think at least 1, 2, 3, 4 of them you can walk behind. I mean, we've been to Iceland and been to their waterfalls, and I remember walking, going, they're like, "Oh, you can walk behind this waterfall." And I'm like, "Okay, we can do 3 of these in 4 miles."
Wow.
Anyway, we stayed there, and you made me think about the raccoons, is because I put a cooler outside the door, and you're worried about bears and everything. I'm like, it's not gonna be bears. And then I thought about raccoons, but then I forgot about raccoons. And the second night, we were only there for 2 nights. Apparently, I mean, it's a good thing there isn't an axe murder, because someone heard something, and then my wife blamed me because I was in our bedroom. I was not doing anything. And then everybody, oh yeah, it's just Kevin, so they don't make any noise. And then the only person who like got up and looked at anything was my daughter, and she looks and she's like, oh, I don't see anything. And then, but apparently they'd gotten in and they opened the cooler, and it wasn't like a super advanced cooler. They took like, I don't know, 2 or 3 pounds of cheese and some special salami we had. And I mean, they made a freaking score. And then, you know, at some point someone said, "Oh my God, I think they're out there." And they went and looked and they grabbed a couple of things, but then they came back, and then they went after the garbage can, which didn't have anything in it, because I don't know, my daughter was like, "Yeah, I felt bad for him because, Larry the raccoon came out and probably was like, yeah, this is good." And he like got his family, and then they're like, "Where the hell's the food, Larry? There's nothing here, you liar," And but they came back and trashed.
They're so smart. My gosh.
Yeah, they took it. Gone. It was gone, like full on gone. Like,
yeah.
No, it is disappeared.
Yeah, they impress me not just by their dexterity, but their smarts on how to problem solve. It's we don't give them enough credit sometimes, but
yeah.
Well, do you want to take us out?
Sure. Well, thank you guys all for joining us on the first. I do believe this is the first of our Saturday Salutations for 2023. Won't be the last. As always, if you want to join the community, you can go to thechangephysician.com, whether you're a physician or a physician ally. And until next time, stay well.
Take care.